Marysville Getchell Charger chat.
All right, we're here with Mr. Wood. Can you talk about what you do here at Marysville Getchell?
Absolutely. I am a substitute teacher currently. I've been a licensed teacher for about a year, and I fill in occasionally when teachers need time off.
Yeah.
And I think it's an integral part of the process.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so what is the most common thing that teachers are out for, do you think?
Typically, they're out for technical training or some kind of continuing education within a district. So they'll be down at the district office, and while they're down there, I'll come in and fill in for them.
Yeah, so do you ever have to do any tech training like that as a sub?
No, I don't.
No?
So
Do you dream of doing tech training one day?
I feel a little left out sometimes about the tech training. I would
Yeah.
like to, and in all honesty, it would help me once I become a full-time teacher to have a head start on what is expected of teachers in the classroom technically.
So what kind of qualifications do you need to become a substitute teacher?
A substitute teacher currently in Marysville, you must have a bachelor's degree. Because there's such a shortage of substitute teachers right now, they will allow you to substitute teach on an emergency basis with just a bachelor's degree. Typically, you need to be a certified teacher, which means bachelor's degree and then additional education to get your teacher certification.
Yeah. So you said that you were a certified teacher?
Oh, I currently am. I've been a
Yeah.
certified teacher for a year.
Are you looking into getting a job as full-time teaching?
I certainly am. I'm looking forward to having my own classroom so
Yeah.
I can have a 4-year experience with students as they go through the high school process. So I'm looking in all the surrounding school districts for a full-time job.
Yeah. What do you want to teach?
I'm endorsed in social studies,
Yeah.
secondary level, so history, psychology, current American issues, geography, things like that.
Yeah.
That's personally my favorite subject.
Yeah, I
Yes.
love that too. Do you know anything else like along the lines of math and sciences?
I
How well are you
do.
at that?
I'm fairly good at math. I'm, in order to improve my employment prospects, I'm pursuing an endorsement in mathematics. There's a big need for math, science, and special education teachers. And of those 3 subjects, math is my best. So if I don't become a social studies teacher, hopefully I'll be a math teacher.
Have you always wanted to go into teaching when you were growing up?
No, absolutely not. Out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I joined the military for 3 years until I got a little better feel for what I wanted to become. Once I started college, I was actually a photography major to start out with. And yeah, photography. I had, I think, 4 majors in college. Photography, accounting, history, and finally settled on education, and it's
Yeah.
been a long road.
You just dipped your toes in everything else.
Yeah, you could say that. I have a lot of varied interests, and listened to some people on what good majors were, and tried them out, decided they weren't for me after a couple of courses, and moved on to the next.
Yeah.
What branch of the military were you in?
I served 3 years in the United States Army many years ago, 1984 to 1987.
Is there
I didn't know you were that old. You seem younger.
I turned 50 this year.
You seem
I'm
so
late to
young.
the education game. Typically, your subs are a little younger or on the retired edge,
Yeah.
and just coming back to fill in some time.
Yeah. So I've noticed around, especially ISC, you formed a lot of bonds with students as if you were a teacher here full time. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, I take it as a compliment. It's one of the reasons I decided to get into teaching was to have that relationship with students. I started working here in 2014 as an assistant to the special education teacher when I started my education process to become a teacher. So I wanted to get into a school and get a feeling for what it's like to be in an educational setting. So I worked while I completed my studies, and I developed a relationship with students, and this is my favorite school to substitute in.
So how would you compare the education that you're seeing now as you're looking around like Getchell and ISC to the education that you had?
It's quite different. When I was in high school, it was lecture driven. It was all about the instructor. There wasn't a whole lot of interaction or engagement with students to discover the knowledge on their own or to learn how to learn. It was primarily note-taking, paying attention, and then just putting that information back onto a test without a lot of process of critical thinking or higher learning skills. It was really just taking notes and hoping you passed a test.
Does that like motivate you now in teaching, that you really want to give kids this better education that like provides critical thinking and teamwork and all these things that you need to learn to go on in life?
Absolutely. I think it's, not to use the word overly, but it is critical that you as students understand how to learn, how to understand information, how to process information, and how to use it in your lives as you go on whatever atmosphere or whatever area you go out into. You need to be able to process information, whether it's to become a better citizen, more informed, so you can make decisions, or about your personal life. So it's important for you to be as engaged and as present in the process as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As a sub, there's obviously some challenges you face that some teachers don't face. Like when you sub to a class you haven't been in for a while, you probably get a lot of, well, this is how the teacher wants us to do it, and then the instructions for the teacher are different. So how do you overcome things like that when you're not always present in the classroom and then a student tells you that you're doing something wrong?
Well, hopefully the teacher that I'm subbing for has left plans and left information on what their expectations are. And hopefully they've discussed it with their students ahead of time, that they'll have a sub and the expectations that they have for you will be the same that they expect me to have for you. A lot of teachers frown on cell phone use in the classroom. And so they'll leave notes that say that. And yes, you'll have students who will say, well, that's not how we do it. And I have to go back to what the teachers left me. My primary role is to fill in for that teacher. So if that's what they expect, those are the expectations that I also have to uphold for the students. But it's natural for students to think that it's a substitute, so it's a day off.
All right. So we're going to head to a break, and we're going to watch Nervous Cheyenne, and we'll be back soon.
All right.
Yeah, they did. All right, what are we talking about next?
Are we clear?
Back to Charger Chat. We're still here talking to Mr. Wood, and we have more questions for you.
Sure.
So you said that you were in the United States Army for 3 years? Is
I
that
was,
correct?
yes.
What drove you towards that, and why did you decide to join the Army over other branches?
Well, my father was career military. He served nearly 20 years, and so I'd always had that in my mind as a possible career track for me. In high school, I did not know what I wanted to be in life, and I knew I wasn't prepared for college. I was somewhat of a bad high school student, and so I thought I need to grow up a little bit. I initially wanted to join the Marines. I was under 18, so you have to have parental permission, and that was not an option. The Marines were not an option. They said the Army is an option. So I chose the Army, and I enlisted right out. I graduated one day, and on the next day I was on a plane to basic training.
Oh, where did you get your basic training?
I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky in
wow.
December, dead of winter, so a lot of snow, a lot of homesickness.
Was that really difficult on you, being home all the time and kind of like not holding all this responsibility. As you said, you were a very good high school student, to all of a sudden just somewhere completely different. And
yeah, it was very tough, and it's not uncommon for young men in basic training to become very homesick. Some of them so much so that they didn't complete basic training. It was a different world. You are not in control anymore. You were at the mercy of your drill sergeants. So it was a huge culture change for me, to being told when to get up, how to dress, how to make your bed. So it was a struggle, but it was a benefit. It grows you up quick.
Mm-hmm.
So did you form a lot of really good relationships in that?
I did. Even though I was only in for 3 years, almost all 3 years were spent with the same group of guys. So we formed some very good relationships that remain today. We still get together through social media and talk about our experiences and how much it's changed in the last 30 years since we were in.
Yeah.
So for those 3 years that you were in, at one point did you decide that you were going to stop after the 3 years, or that you wanted to get into a different career path, or you wanted to get into education? What was kind of the process leading out of the Army?
I never went in with the idea of it being a career. I did not see myself being in for 20 years or more. I knew that it was just a stop on the way to me becoming more mature and having some time to think about what I wanted to do. And then the Army helped me in that decision. When it came time for me to re-enlist, after my 3 years were up, I weighed my options. I wanted to stay in the current job I was in, and they said if I did stay in my current job, I would have to stay at Fort Riley, Kansas, for at least another 3 years. And I was as a young man, I grew up all over the world, and I really wanted to get back overseas, to either Germany or Korea. So when they told me that I'd be stuck in Kansas for 3 years, I think that helped me make the decision that it was time to begin my college education.
So did you ever consider studying abroad, since you had been around the world and you wanted to visit so many places?
In college?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think cost was the primary deterrent to that. It can be pretty expensive. The Army helped me with college money, but I think at that point I was also ready to go home and reconnect with my high school friends who I hadn't seen in 3 years, who had already started their college life, and I was ready after 3 years to go home. And
yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
With all those places that you mentioned that you've kind of been to overseas, were those like family trips or?
No, they were. Thanks to the military. My father being, like I said, career Army. I was born in Germany initially. I lived off and on in Germany for 6 years. For about a year and a half, I lived in Okinawa, Japan. Lived where else in Europe? Austria. Spent a little bit of time in Austria, and then just traveling. We moved every 2 to 3 years in the military. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know a couple people from Okinawa who they say that it's like a really awesome place. I mean, I've heard some really cool things about how it's all very different from the way that we do things here.
It is. I was there when I was in kindergarten, so I can't speak to exactly how much different it is. But it was, from what I remember as a kindergartner, it was great, and it was just great to experience different cultures. I have pictures, or my mother has pictures of me in my little dress for kindergarten, and our kimonos, I believe they're called, that we wore. So.
Would it be an appropriate time to make a "We're not in Kansas anymore" joke, or no?
We are not in Kansas. Very good.
All right. So what brought you to Marysville?
Well, I grew up, like I said, all over the world. I spent my high school years in Southern California, which was another culture change. Moving from Germany to Southern California in 1980, that was quite a shock. And then I grew up there, went to the Army, came back there. I moved to Washington in 1998 to finish my college education. And I think I was ready to experience another new culture, even within the United States. I wanted to experience seasons. In Southern California, we didn't have seasons. It was sunny or partly sunny. So I moved up to Marysville, Washington. I had family members up here, and fell in love with the place, and plan to spend the rest of my life here.
Yeah. So, when you say like you wanted to experience kind of like a new culture, what is the difference between like the other places in the U.S. that you've been in comparison to Washington? Of course, besides Starbucks, that's an obvious one.
Obvious. Southern California, a very laid-back atmosphere, very expensive to live. When I lived there, it started to get really warm. I wanted some cooler climates, and the pollution, the smog was quite a problem. I don't know if people understand just how well you have it up here. The weather and the clean air is just, you can't beat it. But I think it's just it's a really inclusive environment up here. People they're incredibly friendly, incredibly welcoming to everybody. I thought it was great the way I was treated when I first moved up here.
Yeah.
With some of the other places you've been, which one is your favorite and why, or is that too hard to decide?
No, absolutely Germany. Having been born there and having lived there for 6 years, it was an incredible place to experience as a child. So much to see, so much history, which may have been another reason why I went into history as my final college major, because there's so much history to see in Europe. So absolutely recommend if you can get to Europe to travel, please do. It's incredible.
I think, are you going to Europe?
I'm going to Italy next spring break, so
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is going to be amazing.
Yeah. Europe just sounds like an awesome place to go and to live like you have.
Sure.
Yeah.
So something I've always wondered about people who are, born in other countries and move around a lot.
Sure.
How were you raised for speaking? I mean, did you speak German for a few years of your life? Do you still speak German? When you moved to Okinawa, did you start learning their language? I mean, how does that carry over?
I did not learn Japanese. I think I was learning how to not fall over all the time as a kindergartner and not get in trouble. But I did speak some German and learn some German while I lived in Germany. So much so that I thought I could pass German 1 when I moved back to California. So my freshman year of high school, I took German 1 thinking, this is going to be easy. And it was for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, I was like every other student. I believe I ended up failing German 1. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
I think I learned enough German while living there just to get directions to someplace or say, I'm sorry that my friends and I did this because we were constantly in trouble. So it was very important to let the Germans know that, I'm sorry. So we learned that a lot.
Yeah. Now, Thomas and I end up in a lot of trouble, too.
But it's not normally, we don't do things wrong. We're just kind of loud.
Yeah, we're just kind of loud. So I understand the whole, sorry my friends did this type of thing. Also, you mentioned that you lived in Austria for a while. How was speaking there?
Well, they speak German.
Yeah.
So,
they
yeah,
speak German, yeah.
they speak German. And it was wonderful. I learned to ski in the Austrian Alps. So that was a great experience as a middle school, middle school field trip. We went skiing, broke my leg, but that's what happens when you learn how to ski. Something's going to be broken.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna head to Emma Ray Fashion Statement, and we'll be back with you soon.
I dress the way that I dress because it makes me feel comfortable, and ultimately that's what I try to do when I dress in the morning. My shoes, I wear slippers sometimes because they're comfortable. I wear Converse because, they're nice looking. Usually you'll see me wear skinny jeans or leggings, and that's just because it's just what I think fits best and looks best with my body type, and I wear usually flowy shirts because I think that looks better with me.
Hi, welcome back to Charger Chat. We're here with Mr. Wood, and we're going to keep talking to him.
So I think we should kind of segue back into the teaching profession.
Sure.
when you're subbing for a class, like you said, obviously a lot of students look at it as kind of like a day off. You know, oh, it's a sub, we can just lay back, do whatever. What are some ways that you try to engage the students and really get them back into doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, the first way is to not be too overbearing. I don't want to come in and be that hard drill sergeant type, because I understand the feeling, you know, of having a different teacher in the room. So I get that. So I just try to remind them what their expectations of their teacher are, and that regardless who's in the room, the work has to be done. If the work is due, the work is due. You don't get an extra day to do the work because you have a sub. Your teacher's going to expect if it's due tomorrow, it's going to be due tomorrow, whether or not they're there or I'm there. So, and another thing is just trying to connect with the students and be helpful. In most of the subjects, I can be pretty helpful. If it comes to science, you're on your own.
So is there any science is specifically tough for you? Like, you know, you can handle physical science, but biology is just a no.
If it has an ology on the end, then I'm in trouble.
Well, physical science doesn't have an ology.
I'm still in trouble. If it has science attached to it in any form, I'm in trouble. Science was not my strong suit. It wasn't my weak suit. It was just not a suit for me in high school.
All right, I have a question. What is the mitochondria?
Mitochondria, isn't that the powerhouse of the cell?
Yeah, there we go.
Powerhouse of the cell. Ooh, good job.
And the only, well, besides your help, I hear students going over that all the time. Remember the mitochondria.
Yeah, that's kind of like a...
What about the Golgi apparatus? You remember that one?
It's part of the cell also. And I think that's it, if that's true. If it's not, then see, I told you.
I think that's the best I don't know answer I've ever heard.
Yeah.
It's part of the cell.
Yeah.
I sounded really confident about that. I was like,
It's just like, you know, you got to state what you know and then just slide on through.
I've heard the word before, and that's where it ends.
Yeah, it's also really fun to say, you know, Golgi apparatus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I would have not pronounced it correctly.
Yeah.
I think the only reason she brings it up is because in one of the segments, she's supposed to be studying for an SAT final, and she's really aggressively talking about the Golgi apparatus, so it's kind of become a joke.
Yeah. All right. So with teaching, we've definitely had teachers that have substitute teachers that have been overbearing. So you say that you don't want to be overbearing, but you still have to keep them on task in a way, and that can be very difficult. I mean, we've watched students completely leave the class because there's a substitute, you know.
It happens, yes. So another process that we can go through, or that I go through as a substitute teacher, is knowing that the school district has requirements and they have expectations of me. And at the end of the day, I have to meet those expectations. And so sometimes I'd like to be less strict, but I know that at the end of the day, I'll be held accountable. And it's just part of being a professional. As much as I would love to just count it as a day to goof off, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do me any good. It doesn't help me become the teacher that I want to become. So I use the substitute teaching classroom as a way for me to experiment on things that I can use when I become a real teacher.
Yeah.
I think that you're probably one of the better subs. I would love to see you as a full teacher. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. I'd take that class.
I think a lot of the problem is some subs really don't have very much enthusiasm. They're just kind of thinking like, this is what I'm doing until I get to be a full teacher, and the students kind of really soak in that vibe.
Absolutely.
And they just kind of deflate,
those,
I guess.
Yeah, those kind of you know, those kind of emotions and stuff like that. It really like the kids, like, they pick up on that. And so if a teacher comes in and they're like, oh, I hate my job, and then they're going to be like, oh, well, I hate school.
Yeah.
No, if there's one thing I have in abundance, it's enthusiasm for the work. I love to be in the educational setting. It's as much a benefit for me as for you guys. I couldn't imagine spending the rest of my life doing anything else. And it's important to let students know that I'm interested to be here, that it's not just a paycheck, and I'm looking forward to substitute in a science class. I keep trying to get into a science class because I will learn just as much as the students will, and learning will be a lifelong process for me. I will be taking courses myself for as long as I'm able to.
I really admire your outlook because, like he said, a lot of a lot of substitute teachers, they tend to take on this like mindset of, oh, this is just, we're just doing this until I can get a real job.
Not quite where you want to be, so
Yeah.
you're just kind of not going to try.
Yeah, so it's they kind of just put it off, but I like how you are putting everything into all that you do in this process. That's really admirable.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I have to be a role model as well. I want you to get that vibe that whatever it is you are doing, if you are in it 100% and you show that, other people will pick up on that.
Yeah, I really hear a lot of students speak fondly of you and a couple other subs.
Yeah.
Nice.
They
You're
really
definitely one of the favorites around here.
Yeah, because I feel like you really care about the students' education. You're not there to here's your assignment and do it. You're like, hey, I'm here to be the sub. I know that it's not everyone's favorite to have a sub, but we got to make the best of it.
Yeah.
Here's the work. Is there any way that I can help you through it? I'll try my hardest. And then a lot of students are like, wow, he really cares, and I actually can do this, and I don't just have to go sit on my phone and then complain to the teacher that I couldn't do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, you got to find somewhere between kicking your feet up and thinking, oh, well, I'm in here for an hour. Here's your assignment. Or just, like, being over them all the time. Like, you need to get this work done. So you have to find that good balance there.
And that's just it. There's a balance between being too in your face and too laid back, and I don't care. So, and I think that's one of the things I do well so far.
Yeah.
Do you think that traveling to all these different places and obviously interacting with different cultures has really helped you to be able to interact better with people? Like, you understand different people's perspectives. Obviously, you've been all over the world. You've talked to a lot of different people from all different walks of life. I mean,
absolutely.
how influential
Along with learning in the formal educational setting, just learning other cultures and learning how to interact with different people. It plays an important role on being able to get along with everybody, to understand that everyone has a different outlook. People look at different views differently, and I think it helps me to be more well-rounded and to be successful.
I could imagine that you've definitely seen a lot. So what culture would you say was the most different from what you had here, like perspective and outlook-wise, just like on lifestyle?
I would have to say my limited experience with it would be the Japanese culture. And this was 1970, I believe, 1971, so quite a while ago, but a very different culture than we experienced. A lot more formal, a lot more lack of outward expressions of emotions, of excitement. You were expected to be very reserved. And keep in mind, this was relatively recent after the end of World War II, and the U.S. was viewed as an occupying power at that point. So it was a different culture, but still fascinating.
Yeah. So around here, we definitely have a lot of outward expression, if you haven't noticed.
We are a school of communication.
Well, just kind of this area in general.
Yeah.
We're very outward expressing. So would you say that you enjoy that more, to see the kids with all their like expressions and stuff like that?
Absolutely. The energy and the vibe that you mentioned in this school is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to come back. Like I said, this is my favorite school to substitute for. And that's one of the reasons, is because of the students, because they show that energy and that enthusiasm for being here. It's rare that I'll see students absolutely, come in with a sour face and I really don't want to be here. Everybody has those days, but for the most part, you guys are the reason we come back.
All right, so we're just about done here. Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to say to the students or faculty or anyone watching?
I guess the one thing I'd like to say is make sure you stay off your cell phones in class.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.